To make your solid choice for Beaufort County Commissioner, we offer, for your viewing pleasure, the Conservative Team.
My name's Steve Carrollman from Belhaven, North Carolina. I was a councilman for 10 years, mayor pro tem for 4 of those years, police commissioner for 2 years, and I worked on 10 annual budgets, multi-million-dollar budgets. I have the experience that it takes to move that up to county commissioner level.
My name is Tandy Dunn. I have over 40 years in public service as a EMT, a police officer, and a fireman, and I want to represent the entire county and not just one particular area.
My name is Hood Richardson. I've been a county commissioner for 27 years. I run an engineering and land surveying business here in Washington, and I have a lot of experience on the board.
One of the passionate things, and people have come to me and asked me about, was the insane amount of money, in my estimation, that the accumulation of taxpayers' money is upwards of $34 million, and the law requires upwards of $8 million. Now, that's quite a disparaging figure there for a tier 1 county that's on the backs of the taxpaying public. And I, for one, am an old-fashioned guy, and I think that's too much. And I'd like to see some of that money refunded back to the taxpayers. I'd like to see a 10% tax decrease. And let's protect the people and the taxpayers that are actually funding all these things instead of trying to spend every dime that they get a hold of.
I agree, Steve. You know, they keep coming up with new projects all the time. We spent $4 million on Wi-Fi water meters. Now they're having meetings about public housing. And as a taxpayer, I don't want to be paying for somebody's house. I mean, my money should be spent to support the county and things like that. But I don't think that we need to be getting into the housing business at this time.
Well, I agree with both of you guys, and just some of the things that I know of that are going on the board is the county is looking real hard at this public housing thing. And I was at the meeting the other night of that committee that's chaired by Rebholz, who is running for commissioner again this time. And Commissioner Rebholz has designs on using county-owned land to build houses and getting loans from Golden Leaf and any social source that he can find and reducing the rent. But the numbers didn't work even that they had the other night. They're going to rent an apartment for $800 and you're going to get a washer, dryer, completely furnished and utilities included. But when you took the money and you worked it out, there was about $80 a month to pay for the washer, the dryer, the utilities and everything. So there's a lot of problems in what Rebholz is talking about doing, and we don't need socialized housing. For one thing, we already have housing programs that we don't like that are funded by the state and the federal government. So why should the county decide who gets a house or who gets free rent or cheap rent and who doesn't? We don't need to be deciding that stuff. And one other thing they have designs on using some of this surplus for is to get us into Medicaid expansion. Now, I thought Medicaid expansion involved only the state, but the Beaufort County Health Department, and I sit on that board, is planning on adding medical people who can expand Medicaid. This is with the hospital in Beaufort County, Belhaven, plenty of doctors in the area to provide this, but they want to move into socialism and give away more and more free medical care. And I don't think the county should get into this. We can get hung with a lot of expense and a lot of liability over the long term.
It's correct. And ladies and gentlemen, another way they want to spend your money is they're doing tap dances around. They're receiving $42 million to tear down 2 schools to build another consolidated school, which would erase the identity of the neighborhoods where those other schools are being torn down. Lump 900 students or plus up to grade 3 in a building. The neighborhoods would lose their identity. You wouldn't have anything. The buildings that they have there are perfectly in good shape. They could be renovated. For example, when I was on the board in Belhaven, there was a push to build a $5 million fire department. We said no. We stood firm. We renovated the original building that we have for $275,000. 17 years ago, they're still using that building that we renovated for $275,000, saving the taxpayers a lot of money over the period of time, and that's a big deal. That money is something else, and not only that, the $42 million that they're getting from the state that they're so gleeful about, they forget to tell you that the county must come up with $12 million to supplant that. So that's a lot of money for a tier 1 county with some poor folks in it.
Well, we got money sitting around that they just got to find some way to spend it.
Absolutely.
You know, $42 million for a new school. I'm going to say something that y'all probably go, what? I don't have a problem with the new school. What I do have a problem with is you go out to Snowden Elementary and what that school looks like. You go to Chocowinity, you still got kids that are meeting in trailers. You know, why is it only Washington gets the new schools and the rest of the county is being overlooked? I mean, I went to Bath High School, and it was nothing better in the world to go to school with your family and your friends. That was a good school, and the worst thing the county did was when they done away with community schools and went to these regional schools. Now, Eastern Elementary and John Cotton Taylor are already regional school, or not regional schools, they're consolidated schools for the Washington area. The building's 54 years old. They have problems, flat roofs and things like that. I don't have a lot of problem with that. I do have a problem with we need to make sure the rest of the county is taken care of and not just one particular area.
Well, I think the thing that troubles me most about the schools is, you know, the county's putting $12 million into this, so we add $12 million to the $42 million.
That's
and
right.
you got $54 million.
Exactly.
I have a problem with the corrupt way that this went about being done. Within a matter of 2 months, we all of a sudden, the board, not we, I didn't vote for it, but the board voted to put the $12 million in this and to accept a grant to tear down 2 schools and build another school to replace them. And here's the problem. The public was not involved in this process. You mentioned neighborhood schools. I'm a big proponent of neighborhood schools. I think we need to roll back so that your children can stay in the neighborhood school from grades 1 or kindergarten through 8, and then they go on to a high school. This has not been discussed. Nobody has brought before the commissioners or the school board how they're going to use this money, other than we're going to build a big building, and isn't that great? And we don't know how the building's going to be built. Can you picture this? Children between the age of 4 and 8, 1,100 of them in one building. And can you picture the pickup with maybe 600 or 700 parents, because they like to pick those kids up, coming to pick those kids up in the afternoon? And can you picture the communicable disease problem with small children in a school like that? You know, the snot problem alone is going to be a major issue. Decontamination is going to be a major issue. I mean, we've all had small kids. We know what I'm talking about here. And the public should be involved. There should have been at least several public hearings that the public could come to and say, we want neighborhood schools. We don't want another consolidated school. The consolidated schools in Beaufort County are dismal failures. We've had 8 schools that made a D to an F, and these guys are out building another consolidated school for little children? Give me a break. Frankie Waters admitted he'd been working on this in the background for 3 years, never brought it to the board. The superintendent never brought anything to his board. There's 2 guys in this county that are making a lot of important decisions about our future and your children's future without consulting with us. That's corrupt government. The public should be involved.
I certainly agree with that. Can recall in the town that I live in Belhaven, when the schools were consolidated and everybody left, the heart of the town went with it. That was it. The people were affected by that. The parents have less amount of influence. Things like now the LGBTQ program, the DEI program, the woke programs are all being foisted upon our kids. Our parents have less and less amount of influence on that, and that stuff is being shoved down people's throat. And frankly, I'm an old-fashioned guy. I don't particularly care for what's going on.
Well, you know, parent involvement in schools is utmost important. The schools aren't there to parent the kids. The parents need to be involved, but they need to know what's going on, what kind of books are in the library nowadays, what kind of teachers are they hiring, and all this woke stuff and CRT. If you delete history, you're bound to repeat it. History teaches you how to do stuff and how not to do stuff, and the government trying to take down the Civil War statues and shutting down areas and changing the names of bases because they don't like what the name of the base was because of history. And it's our history. It's everybody's history. And history teaches us what happened, and we need to move forward and grow on that, but we don't need to just focus and just cut it out and forget about it, at schools. But, we talked about Frankie and Dr. Cheeseman. We have a Republican chairman, a Republican in name only chairman, and a Democratic vice chairman. And these 7 people on the board, and 5 of them are supposedly Republicans. Why can't we get 2 Republicans in leading the board?
Well, I don't know why we can't do that. Going back, we are the conservative team, just to remind people.
Exactly.
That's why the 3 of us are sitting here. And along with Stan Deathridge, we would be the conservative majority on this board to make some of the changes that are necessary. And for what you're talking about there, Tandy, with 5 so-called Republicans on the board and 2 Democrats, those 2 Democrats run this board. It is not the Republicans that run the board. They make deals for the last 8 to 10 years with Rhino Republicans, most recently Frankie Waters and John Rebholz. Then you got 2 Democrat votes and you got 2 Republican votes. That's the majority. They decide who the chairman and the vice chairman is going to be. So you've got these 2 Republicans, so-called Republicans, sitting there voting for a Democrat to hold an office with 3 other Republicans sitting in the room that should hold one of those jobs. We will end that kind of corruption. We are free and independent people, and making these kinds of deals does not help government. It hurts government, and it hurts the public. And this is how you get situations where $34 million is piled up and not returned to the taxpayers.
Exactly.
And along that line,
Exactly.
tell us what the conservative team's promising on taxes.
Exactly. What we would like to do is give 10% over the first year tax reduction for the people, the taxpayers. It's a burden on it. We're a tier 1 county and we can only afford so much. I hate to see, I'm in the real estate business. I hate to see people that may have inherited a riverfront property or something like that and all of a sudden the taxes are going up so high they can't even afford to stay on their own property. They've owned for ages. And that's not right as far as I'm concerned. I'm a very conservative person, and I make the pledge that if elected, I would never vote for a Democrat to be in charge of a Republican-run board. The Republican majority must be and usurp themselves and be forwarded and run the thing as a conservative should do it.
Absolutely.
And we can't do that. You can't do that to run it like it's being run right now.
A 10% decrease in taxes is not going to be that hard. I mean, there's $34 million in the fund balance. As you said earlier, it's only required to be
By law.
By law.
Yeah.
I don't have any problems having 10 or 12. But that would still leave $22 million that we can be refunding back to our constituents.
Well, it's on the backs of the hardworking people of Beaufort County. And I mean, those folks that we're again, I'm going to hammer the point. We're a tier 1 county. And it's only because of tier 1 county is because the level of economic ability here is limited. And everybody knows that. We've got to live within our means. We can't just spend money like it's water. We can't do that. And I've always had the experience in the past of doing this. We took care of our money. We were very frugal. We cut down the size of government. We cut out waste. And there's a lot of waste that can be cut out. Don't think there's not, because there is. And you just have to decide that you're going to go to work for the people. That's what we want to do. We want to work for the people.
Yeah, and don't forget, I heard arguments during our budget sessions this week about the tax reduction. Why we shouldn't reduce taxes because we need that money. We don't know what we may need money for. It doesn't work that way with taxes in government. governments have the ability to raise money whenever they need government money in large amounts. And that includes raising taxes or going out and getting loans. So there's no reason to pile up unneeded money and not return it to the taxpayers so the taxpayers can put it for their benefit. And I was really disturbed to hear this. It's a communist talking, and it came right out of the mouths of people like Rev Holtz and the rhinos on this board. And what it said was, if we give a 10% tax decrease, we're going to be helping companies like Nutrien, and we're going to be helping the rich people in Beaufort County. Well, yes, you are, but you're also going to be helping the poor people. That tax reduction that you're going to give of 10% is more important to that family that's struggling and working for a living, got 3 children. It's more important to them than the big reduction that a large operator in the county may get. Plus, look, helping our companies in the county to reduce their costs
Exactly.
makes more jobs and more prosperity for us, because people don't invest, companies don't invest money except in places where they can make money. If we make it easier for companies to make money in this county, we're going to have more companies here. So these guys sit there and claim how much they are for economic development and all this, but they take on every socialist idea that you can think of is within the rhinos that are on this Board of County Commissioners. In this group, I make the same pledges these guys have made. I'm not going to vote for anybody but a Republican to be chairman of this board. And I'm going to vote. I make the promise I will vote to reduce taxes 10% the first year after this election. And Stan and I, Deathridge and I, both have the record for that. And you guys are coming on board with it. That gives us what we need to give your money back to you and stop spending it on things that we don't need.
Well, I'm going to interject here. I'm going to vote for a conservative Republican, not necessarily a labeled Republican.
I got it.
Because I see a difference. I've seen an ad. One of the gentlemen running for this seat runs an ad, and it uses a phrase called "it takes a village." Well, "It Takes a Village" was a book written by Hillary Clinton. And if I'm not mistaken, Hillary Clinton is the #1 liberal in the United States of America. So that tells you right there, a leopard is known by his spots. That's the way I look at it.
They talk about the tax and the tax rate. Part of the problem is some of these folks are coming into Beaufort County, and we love to have everybody come into Beaufort County, but they're so used to paying high taxes somewhere else. And so they get here and they see our tax rate and they say, well, that ain't nothing at all. You know, we can up it up, you know, and then we can do more stuff. I mean, next thing you know, we'll have a beautification department. They'll be going out and planting flowers and trees and cutting the grass and doing things like that. You know, I work in Pitt County because that's where my company has its main headquarters at. But we have a facility in Beaufort County too, and we'd love to have the tax break. Just compounding on and growing the government. You know, how many employees do we have in the county?
392.
And how many did we have, say, 10 years ago?
Less than 300, about 280.
About 280. So we've grown about 100, 110 employees
Yes.
in that time frame. Is it all necessary? You know, when we spent $4 million on the water meters, that was supposed to reduce the employees at that location because you don't have nobody out reading water meters anymore. But did they lose anybody?
No.
No. They want to do the public housing thing. That'll be a whole nother department
Yes.
that we don't need. You know, it's just constantly growing and growing just to grow. Things like that, I don't agree with it. You know, we need to hold our money dear. The county commissioners should be treating the money like it's their own personal money. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I've worked hard. You know, I'm 65 years old. I'm still working. I'm going to be working for several more years. I know, but every penny I have, I'm watching how I spend it. I don't just go out and spend it willy-nilly on a new car or a new boat or things like that.
I served with a councilman one time. He used to use the term, "Gentlemen, we just get some of that free money." And we had to remind him every once in a while, but that free money is not free. for every dollar that they give you, it comes from a working guy somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's no such thing as free money. It comes from somebody that's working. And frankly, we have to be more protective of that money than to just spend it because it happens to be there.
Speaking of money and controlling money, I just want to say something for a minute about this LGBT stuff and the woke movement in the schools and the sex training, the weirdo sex training that's going on in the schools and the change of gender stuff that's going on in the schools. The commissioners will not admit it. They dump 18 million in round numbers on the schools every year and run. We have no idea what the school does with that money. It is a lump sum amount of money, and they don't tell us. And if we try to Stan and I try to ask, we get put down. No. That you don't have anything to do with that. That's none of your business. It is absolutely all of our business because we're given the taxing authority to take that money away from you and put it somewhere else. We can control the bad training in the schools with LGBT, the unicorn stuff, the books that the schools buy that they should not be buying for small children to read by simply putting it in the budget. These funds are restricted, not for this use. Now, there are people that will tell you can't do that. That is pure bull. We can do that, and it's a matter of whether we want to do it or whether we have the courage to do it or not. I am one commissioner that has the courage to do that. And I think the other three gentlemen that would be involved in a majority on this new board also have the courage to get into these kind of things and find out where your money is going and how it is being spent, because a lot of it is being spent, especially in the education system, in a corrupt way.
And I also think, to add to that, Hood, I think that it has to be done with complete transparency. Where this money is spent, you need to be accountable for where you spend money. If you spend money on a social program that is this LGBTQ stuff and all that, whatever the acronyms are, you should have to face the people. If the people don't want that, it should be done away with. There's no way that the people will accept that stuff. There's one line that I saw one where they were intending to use, and it said that we're going to refute the church. How to refute the church was part of a curriculum that was being considered for our school children. I know people where I come from, that is totally unacceptable. And that needs to be brought out, where people need to know exactly what's in these things, and the transparency must be there for them to be able to examine that and to voice their opinion, and their opinion should count for something. They have to have the parents' input, and they have to have that input so it can be considered.
Well, you talked about restricting the use of money. You know, our continuation budget is just a total farce also. You know, we need to be line item on stuff. You know, say this is what it's used for. Every month, somebody comes to the county and says, I want to move money from here to there. You know, they should have budgeted for it. I've worked places where they come up and they said, all right, you need to figure out some way to save 10% this year.
Right.
Or some way to save 12% this year. You know, I've worked for, when I was in the military, they come up and said, oh, here's $250,000. We need you to spend it before the end of the fiscal year. And I feel sometimes that we do that is, you know, we still got money in the pot and the money's getting ready to come back in again. So they go out and just buy stuff willy-nilly. We spent money on equipment that they said it was sole source, the only person that made it. And I went online. It took me about 10 minutes to find the exact same type of equipment for a third of the price. You know, and I don't understand why we have to spend money that way. You know, it's money set up to be spent certain ways, and they just spending it willy-nilly.
Dandy's hit on the continuation budget racket, and that's what it is. The continuation budget works if you pull out wasteful items when you do the budget. We don't do that. They give us a budget. They simply add to it every year by whatever they call the inflation factor and the increased items that they want to get. So the continuation budget is an ever-growing budget. It will never get smaller the way Beaufort County does it. there is no reason why that we can't examine as a line item budget. Now, when you start doing that, there's a lot of work in it, but you can pick certain departments. This year, we're going to do a third of the budget in those departments, and we're going to look at it really hard. We're going to get the people in and ask them what they're doing and why they have so many people and where the money's going. And we're going to get a check roster, a check printout of the checks above $25,000 that were written as an example for that department for that year. Oh, yes, there's ways to work the budget, but you need to understand that you have a board of county commissioners who will not do this. And they simply are too lazy to do it. And that brings me to this. Have you noticed that the commissioner meetings are getting shorter and shorter? Normally we meet at 5:30 and take a break at 7 o'clock. A lot of times we have trouble getting to 7 o'clock so we can take a break. And the reason is under Frankie Waters, John Rebholz, and the two Democrats supported by Randy Walker, they are making these decisions in the back room, and it never gets to the commissioners. We're buying more expensive automobiles than we've ever bought before. There's no one sitting around saying we need a plain Jane basic automobile for county government. Oh no, we need to go first class. And commissioners can put a stop to this. We have stopped doing things that control cost, like the travel budget. They have blended the travel budget into every department now. At one time, all travel had to be approved by the commissioners. It didn't matter. It had to be approved by the commissioners. We don't do that anymore. They travel and go wherever they want to, and we don't know what they're spending for that. At one time, every vehicle had to be approved by the commissioners. And the reason for that was so we could see that they were buying plain Janes. They were not buying fancy vehicles and things they didn't need. And so we could say, like the latest craze is they need four-wheel drives. Why do you need four-wheel drives? You know, I spent 25 years running mining operations, and I never bought four-wheel drives. Do you know why? A four-wheel drive just gets you into deeper, and I've got to go get you.
Very good.
So you don't need four-wheel. What do we need them for? We don't need them in Beaufort County. We have more paved roads in this county we've ever had before, but we're buying four-wheel drives. So these are things that a board of commissioners in setting policy should be doing, and they should have the opportunity to do it. But when the chairman has three other votes to make a 4-vote majority with his Democrats, and quite frankly, a lot of this is just plain laziness. They don't want to be there. They don't want to do it.
When you forget and lose sight of whose money you're spending, this is what happens. No transparency, losing sight of whose money you're spending, working for your constituents, trying to make a better life for the people out here that are working hard and trying to maintain a level that can be sustained by these folks and their taxes and that sort of thing, making sure that you are transparent in everything that you do with their money and knowing that you're spending other people's hard-earned money. And that's what we want to do.
Well, you know, Hood was talking about the budget and everything, and it's just amazing what we spend money on. You know, recently we've gone around and we put up these great big rails around all the convenience sites because they were in violation of OSHA standards. They really were. But if you recall, about 2 or 3 years ago, I came before the board and showed them what we could be doing for our convenience sites that would have prevented that or wouldn't make it necessary. And, you know, if we're going to build any mega sites, we don't need to have a hill to drive up on. People need to just be able to drive straight into it and dump the stuff off and drive right on out, keep right on going. Even though I worked on the farm for over 25 years, Granddad never let me back a trailer up. And so I can't back a trailer at all. I say at all. I can't back a trailer. So having to go up on the hill and back a trailer to get the stuff, and now you got this big rail and the dump in Chocowinity or the convenience site in Chocowinity, you got to pick your trash can up like 5 feet to dump it out. And that sort of stuff should have been nipped in the bud earlier. They could have seen that was an issue. And then when they shut everything down to fix it, they just put a Band-Aid on it. and we need to be spending money a little more wisely. Contracts. Didn't the county commissioners used to have to approve all contracts? Well, they bring contracts to you, you don't even know what's in them anymore. I saw a contract for the convenience sites for the we pay somebody to dispose of our electronics. And it listed the 2 sites that were doing that. One of them's in the Aurora area, and the other one that listed was Cherry Run. And we don't take electronics at Cherry Run. So even the contract was wrong. You know, I don't know whether they got approved that way, or whether somebody finally figured it out and then changed it, but somebody needs to be reviewing the contracts instead of the departments themselves. They need to bring them forward to let the commissioners look at them also, so that we're not spending things on wasteful items.
Well, that's very true. You have to have a consensus of opinion, and the way it is now with the Democrats, there's no such thing as that. There's no transparency. There's no consensus of opinion, and the people of like mind, conservative people that represent the taxpayers in Beaufort County, the majority of, that's what you need. You have to get you got to do that. You got to have communication.
All right. So as the conservative team, we've got our points that we're interested in. I think we've hit on all of them today. We are the true conservative team, and we're going to do everything we can to ensure that taxpayers' money is not wasted, and that we govern fairly and for the entire county and not just one specific area.
We govern transparent. We get along. We take care of our fiduciary and what we need to do for the people of the county. We have to do that.
I'm in perfect agreement.
Well, thanks for coming.
There you go.